In addition to the government clients, again, we have a lot of private industry clients. In fact, we represent about 75% of the Fortune 100 companies. That includes 13 of the 14 top medical facilities, 18 of the top 20 insurance companies, 8 out of the top 10 commercial banks, and literally thousands of government clients. Now, the one stat on this slide that I always bring up is I see a question up there. Kim, do you want me to wait and have you ask it? Or do you want to wait till the end of the section?
Sorry, I was a little behind. The question is, yeah, you can go ahead and answer. How do you access the app?
All right, so on the personal interpreter, it's something that where you sign up with the credit card, you're given an auth code. And once you're given that auth code, you simply download the app, you enter it, you enter a device name, and you're off and running. For your agency, I don't think you're set up for it right now. You can be. We have both audio only and video. So the audio only would be just like the telephonic interpretation, just like if you called it over the phone, same cost, everything else. Video is a separate contract. So if that's something that your agency wants to look into, I can definitely discuss it with Kim. And I see there's a hand raised right now, Kim. Tamisa Lewis.
Go ahead, Ms. Lewis.
It was a mistake.
Okay, not a problem. That happens. All right, we'll go ahead and move on if there's not any other questions at this time. I was saying that the one stat that really stands out on this is the quality linguist. We hire only 1 in 11 qualified applicants. And I've said earlier, I've been with the company for 16 years. There was a major statewide contract about 10 years ago. And part of that contract required us to actually use a small business partner in that state. The small business partner that we chose was really respected interpretation company. They had about 200 employee interpreters, and they were going to take about 10% of the calls that we took for this state, which would be, it would require about 3 or 4 interpreters from their 200 to do this. Well, as soon as the contract started, we asked them to send us over a few other interpreters to go through our testing, our training. The first round, nobody passed. In fact, nobody in any round passed. So out of the 200 employees, none of them passed our standards. They ended up having to hire 4 people from outside the company, and out of those 4, 2 were previously language line interpreters. So after I went through all of that and we finally got those 4 interpreters, that's when I knew this 1 in 11 qualified applicants meant a lot more than it ever had to me before. And I think, Kim, there's more questions.
Yes, we'll be able to get a copy of this presentation. And
Absolutely.
I can, go ahead.
I was going to say, I sent a copy to Kim already. I'm sure she would be happy to provide it to you. I'm not sure if there's if she can send it all out through email, if there's a site, but if anybody has any problems getting it, you can email me as well. I'm happy to send it out to whoever needs it.
And the recording will be available later also.
And was there one more question?
I'm sorry, that was it.
Okay, that's it. All right, we're going to move on. All right, managing cultural difference. I said we'll touch on this briefly. So most of this is really common sense stuff. Cultural sensitivity, just be non-judgmental. Know that our culture is not the only one out there, and don't judge any other cultures, no matter how different they are from our own. The biggest thing on this slide, I think, is the end communication. English is a very direct language. Other languages, not quite as much. In English, if somebody asks you what you had for dinner last night, more than likely you're going to get what they had for dinner. They might throw in a few other things like where they ate at or how they prepared it. But if you ask that question, you're going to get the answer. Now, I listened to a 911 call a couple of years ago where through the interpreter, the 911 operator asked what the emergency was. And what had happened was a lady was driving with her 2 young children and she was rear-ended. I mean, she wasn't hurt, but she was calling 911 to report that. But when she was asked what her emergency was, she started off by telling them that, you know, well, I woke up this morning and I was running late, and then I had to wake my children up, and then I went and got a shower, and I came back and they went back. So they couldn't even have a chance to take a shower and didn't have a chance to make them breakfast. So, you know, and just went on and on and on. And again, they had went through a McDonald's drive-through to get them breakfast. She came out of a drive-through, got rear-ended, called, but she didn't give a direct answer. So if you're dealing with any of your clients, be it whoever it is, and they start rambling or they start going on giving you information that's not pertinent, feel free to let them know that you know, you need this direct information only, and that's okay. It's not being rude. It's just getting to the point. If not, you might be there for a long time. Education level, again, common sense. This isn't just with LEP or non-English speakers. You know, you want to speak to a certain level. You don't want to speak above or below. Use simple language, and again, common sense, be respectful, and speak in a neutral tone. I've heard people think that if they speak louder, that the person is suddenly going to understand English, and it's not the case. I heard one person, while they're waiting for the interpreter to get on the line, almost scream. I mean, they weren't being rude, but they were talking so loud and thinking that the person was going to suddenly understand, and of course, that is not the case. Any questions before we go on? I saw one pop up, I thought, but maybe not.
There is a question, but it
Okay.
doesn't relate to anything that you've talked about yet. Why don't we take all the questions at the end?
Sounds good. All right, we'll do that, Kim. All right, so the next thing, identifying the language preference of your LEP. And again, LEP, limited English proficient person. We have a few tools. First being the language ID card, then desktop display, language ID poster. Now the desktop display, language ID poster have our top 20 most requested languages on it. What it says under each language is point to your language, an interpreter will be called. The interpreter is provided at no cost to you, and that's at no cost to your client, not to agency. The language ID card has about 80 additional languages. So if somebody walks into your agency or any of your departments, the desktop display should be the first thing they see. They'll walk up, look at it. Spanish, they point to Spanish, to request a Spanish interpreter. Tagalog, to request a Tagalog interpreter. But say they look at this and don't see their language. They're not pointing to anything. They're shaking their head. So you can break out the language ID card. This has close to 100 languages on it. And again, it says the same thing in their language. Point to your language, an interpreter will be called. The interpreter is provided at no cost to you. This is broken down by geographic regions. So there's like Pacific Islanders, there's European, there's all different geographic regions. You just turn it to the correct region, they'll point to their language. Now say that they look at this and their language is still not on there. There are a few simple questions, common sense questions that you can ask. Even if they don't speak any English whatsoever, they might be able to answer a question. And the first is simply, what language do you speak? Sometimes they've been taught how to respond to these questions, or what country are you from? And finally, what is your name? Now, if they can answer what language do you speak, you're set. You know what language to request. Answer what country are you from? At least it narrows it down. So say they could say China. We can assist you with 14 different languages from the country of China. So at least it narrows it down to that when you call in. The name, sometimes it'll help, sometimes it won't. But say they couldn't, their language was not on the language ID poster, desktop display, or language ID card. They could not answer any of your questions. You're not out of luck yet. So when you call into us, and this is your agencies, your client, this is your specific information. So when you call in, this is the procedures that you'll follow. So you'll dial the 866-874-3972. This is an automated platform that's going to say, thank you for calling Language Line. Please enter your 6-digit client ID number. Everybody will use 518-215. This is a point where if you don't know the language, you can do one of two things. You can hit 0, it'll go directly to a call agent, or you can hit 2 and say help. Either way, you'll get to a live call agent who will be able to assist you in actually determining what language is needed and getting that interpreter on the line. But most of the time you are going to know the language. And most of the time that language will be Spanish, probably about 80 to 90% of the time. So you'd simply hit 1. After that, you provide your 10-digit phone number when prompted, and then you're going to connect with your linguist. If it's any other language besides Spanish, you'll hit 2. It'll say, please speak the name of the language. Now at this time, if you aren't able to pronounce the language correctly, say it's Tagalog and you say Tagalog or something like that, and our system doesn't understand you, they'll get a live call agent on to help you as well. Now this is if somebody is there face-to-face with you. The best way to use this is if a speakerphone or through one of our dual handset phones, but the speakerphone works perfectly. So if somebody's face-to-face there with you, dial the number and your 6-digit client ID number, let us know what language, enter your 10-digit phone number, connect with the interpreter. Now, this is usually the hardest part for the clients. You have to know how to use your conference hold button if you receive an inbound call from a limited English proficient person. On my phone, it says flash. Some phones, it says conference. So you receive a call from someone, don't just automatically place them on hold. Tell them to please hold for an interpreter. Again, if they don't speak any English whatsoever, they probably have heard the phrase at least hold or interpreter. If you don't say anything, if they just hear dead air while you're conferencing, they'll probably hang up and call back again. So you receive a call from an inbound call from an LAP, identify the language and tell them to please hold for an interpreter. Conference in the interpreter and follow the steps on the previous screen. It's that simple. Finally, the third way is if you need for us to make an outbound call for you. If you have a client who you know what language that they speak and you know their phone number and you have to reach out to them, call us first. Dial that toll-free number, enter that 6-digit client ID number, let us know what language it is, enter your 10-digit phone number, and then the interpreter, when they come on the line, they're going to introduce themselves. Hi, my name is Joe, Spanish interpreter 6543. Is your client with you today, or do you need me to make a dial out? Simply tell them, I need for you to make a dial out. Here's the number. They'll make the call and be on the line when your client answers the phone. That is how you connect with an interpreter. Couldn't be simpler. Finally, once you get the interpreter on the line, this is how you should work with them. And I'm going to start at the bottom first. So again, they're going to introduce themselves. They're going to give you their name and interpreter number. Write that down in case you need to reference it later. You want to brief the interpreter and let them know what you're trying to accomplish on the call, the goal of your encounter for today. And it could be as simple as, I work with the benefits office and I think that this person is going to apply for services. It can be that simple. When you're communicating with your customer through the interpreter, this is your call. It's not the interpreter's. I've heard a lot of people get on the line, and once the interpreter starts talking to your client, they think they're going to sit back and listen to the conversation. That is definitely not the case. The interpreter does not know your job. They will not be able to answer any questions without you on the phone. I've had people hang up as soon as the interpreter comes online thinking that, their job is done. This is your call. You want to use first person at all times. Speak directly to the limited English proficient client of yours. If they're with you, look at them the same as if they spoke English. You're talking directly to them. Too many times you see people just looking at the ground, turning around. And you wouldn't do that to somebody who spoke English. So you shouldn't do that to anybody who doesn't speak English. You're speaking directly to them. You want to speak in short sentences, usually 3 to 5 sentence segments. You can't speak for a half hour and expect for the interpreter to repeat everything. So you want to group all of your thoughts together. If they're filling out a form, do the first section. Sir, I need your name, your address, your phone number, and an email address for you. Pause, let the interpreter relay that information. They'll get the information and bring it back to you. You'll write it down and then go on to the next part of your form. You want to avoid any type of jargon, slang, acronyms, technical terminology, anything that the person would not understand or anybody outside of your office wouldn't understand. If there's an acronym, simply spell it out for them. If you sense that the customer doesn't understand what you're saying, try to rephrase it or put it in another way. If you ask them if they understand, more than likely they'll shake their head yes, and but that does not mean they understand. If there's something that's very important, say a date or a telephone number or something else that it's really important that they have or really important that they understand, instead of asking them if they understand, ask them to summarize what you just said. Ask for them to repeat it. And if they can, then you're great. If they can't, then say it again until they actually do understand. Finally, whatever the interpreter hears will be interpreted. So avoid any type of private conversations or anything outside your conversation with your client. So if somebody walks in, ask what you want for lunch and tuna on rye, they might interpret that for you. You don't want that to happen. So anything that is said will be interpreted. This is more for Kim. This is a LanguageLine client portal. It's called My LanguageLine. You can go on at any time and pull reports of usage, pull past invoices. You can do trend reports like language summaries. You can do just about anything on here as far as billing or usage is concerned. And now I'm going to turn it over to my buddy John, and he will take it from here. John, since I have the presentation up, you just let me know when you want me to go on to the next screen.
Sounds great. And hello again, everybody. As far as the county is concerned, with any kind of translation request needs, always please think of me as your first line of support. You can call me, you can write me, you can text me. Smoke signals might work, I don't know. But I am here for you, and whenever you have questions or you need any help in any way, if anything seems confusing, please let me know. Please reach out right away. So we have 3 ways to submit files and request quotes. My preference, so I put it as the first one, is if you email, and you don't have to, but this is just purely selfishly for me, because if you use that intake box, where you'll always get very quick service, by the way, because there's always a person monitoring it. And if you CC me, that way, well, if you have any questions down the road or a concern or anything, I can quickly look everything up, even though I'm remote, and I can get the history pretty quickly. Plus, if I'm monitoring things, if I see anything that could be a question, I'll definitely reach out. But you can also upload on the link that I provided there. There's a little form that you fill out, and they do request that you provide your customer number when you do that, your account number. And finally, if you find that you're going to be using our services quite a bit fairly frequently, and if the county as a whole is trying to monitor translation usage, the LingoNet portal might be a good way of going about things. That is, again, pretty simple. You have username, user ID, access, and password, like everything else we do in life these days. But you can have an administrator and really an unlimited number of accounts under that administrator. And you can submit your files, you get your quotes, so on and so forth. The neat thing about that is there's some great reporting capabilities within it. So you can find out things such as project status, how much money you're spending, the languages you're using, and so on. And we do customize the reporting on request. Next slide, please. So these are some things to think about when you're requesting a quote. Obviously, you want to let us know the languages. And just a reminder that written Chinese is not Mandarin or Cantonese or whatever, but it's really traditional or simplified. And the background on that is that back in the 60s in mainland China, in the People's Republic, they wanted to try to encourage mass literacy. So they did a real clean sweep of the written form simplified it down to, probably more than 50,000 characters down to under 2,000 characters. And each of those characters was done in a more simple way. Maybe a lot got lost, and there's quite a bit of discussion about that. But typically, for your purposes, if you have Chinese populations, immigrant populations that are come in over the last, let's say, 20 years, chances are good they're coming from the mainland, from the People's Republic, and they probably read and write simplified. A lot of my customers around the country are actually using both traditional and simplified when they're doing outreach because they really are different written language forms. And just kind of like when you think about your phone interpretation, you probably wouldn't just settle on Mandarin and say, okay, I'm going to use that for all different Chinese variants or dialects. Well, the written is sort of that way. If anything, it's even more so because they are very different forms. Then, whatever other information you have that you need, if you have a special deadline, if you're asking us to provide voiceovers, do you want male or female, aged, older or younger? Same with the written translation. If it needs to be a certain grade level, for instance, you should let us know that. That would be great. Anything you can do to provide us help, we appreciate. Next slide. All file types are welcome. However, I will say that if your PDF is of a brochure or a book or an ad that you've actually created yourselves, and if you're able to access the source or the original files that made that PDF, that would be terrific. It will save us time and money, which in turn saves you time and money as well. We'll get them back to you quicker and cheaper. You'll always get a source, so if you send us Word files, you'll get back Word files. InDesign files, you'll get back translated InDesign files, but we also send you a PDF. And I want to mention the PDF very quickly from another perspective. Once you've received these translations, if somebody wants to provide reviews, if somebody thinks they've seen an error, we ask that they use the PDF, that they highlight what is their concern, and then they use the comment feature to let us know what they think is wrong with it or what word they think should be used instead. If you send that back to us, we'll have a senior reviewer take a look at it immediately. If we are at error, we'll fix it immediately for you, of course. But what we find is that probably 90%, probably 80% of what we receive is purely preferential and not that we were wrong. And also you'd be surprised at how many of the reviews we get, actually the reviews are wrong, and that's for a lot of reasons. We do make mistakes, but they are very rare. And a lot of the reason for that is that how we go about our business, almost everything that we translate has 3 translators or linguists on it, one as a translator, one as a copy editor, and then if it goes to get formatted, after the formatting, a third translator or linguist will act as a proofreader, looking at right down under the microscope. So we're trying to give your, I should say, Spanish or any other languages as much attention, good attention, as you give your English. And by the way, the linguists are very highly qualified. That's one of the things about us and our team is we have very high standards. There's no part-timers, there's no college students. We require native language speakers, professionally trained, minimum of 5 years experience, and we test them and we put them through a probationary period. So our standards are really pretty high. Next slide, please. So again, the translation box, always monitored. If you have large files or if you have personal, private, confidential information, you simply write the same way, but you just ask for an upload link. And if you're familiar with Microsoft ShareFile, that's what we use. And I will also mention, for anything confidential, we are 100% ShareFile internally. we do not, the project manager would never, ever share any attachments except by share file when they're going out to and from the linguists, from the formatting team, engineering, anybody. That'll always be done by share file. So we are 100% secure. And of course, as I mentioned, we have the upload link at the LanguageLine website. Another page, Joe? So we talked about the LingoNet portal already. You'll have this slide deck after this meeting, so this just gives you a reference point back. Next slide. So this is the process from our side. You submit, so email or upload or however you do it, we will get you an acknowledgement back, essentially saying, yes, thank you for your request, we got it. If they have any questions, they'll get the questions back to you. But this is just so you know that we did receive it. And then you get your quote after that. It's a very comprehensive quote process. Anybody who's going to be touching it is going to look at it to see if there's anything, they have any questions or any issues that they're aware of. So the quote comes back to you same day or the next day, or if it's a Friday, it'll come back on Monday, possibly. Excuse me. And it will include an estimated turnaround time, and that's in business days from approval. So when you approve, the clock starts ticking. Email approval is fine. Don't feel, especially nowadays, don't feel that you have to scan something out. I mean, sign it, print it out, sign it and scan it and all that. Don't worry about that. An email approval is fine. If we need PO information from you, please make sure that we know that as well. What the PO might be. And then again, we'll use ShareFile to return your translations to you. Next slide. And that's me just waiting here on the Massachusetts-New Hampshire border to help you out wherever I can. And thank you for your time.
All right, I'll pick back up from here, and there's just a couple slides left. We have Insight Technical Service in case you do use the app for audio or video. Finally, Voice of a Customer. Earlier, when I talked to you about writing down the interpreter's name and number, this is the main reason why. We have a customer feedback portal on our website, www.languageline.com, called Voice of a Customer. At any time, 24/7, you can go on here and report any troubles that you had on a call. We actually receive more commendations than we do complaints. But as the account manager, I would much rather you let me know if something is wrong than if something's right. I expect for you to have almost a perfect interpretation every single call. So that's expected. Now, if there's something wrong, we want to know so we can fix it. We hire the best interpreters and we want to keep the best interpreters for you. And this is how. So say you had an interpreter who was rude or you just didn't think did a great job. Come on here and let us know. You'll give us their name, you'll give us their interpreter number. Most of it's a drop-down menu. It'll literally take less than 2 minutes from start to finish. You enter your name, your account number, your agency name, and then everything after that is drop-down menus. There's a place to elaborate further if you have anything else to say, but it's a really quick process, so let us know. Also on our website, we have blogs, which I recommend everybody signing up for. It has some great information, especially this year with COVID. It's talked about how agencies like yours have coped and how each of them have developed new ways of working that's helped other agencies out. We also have training videos on here under our client resources. It's a great website. We've redone it a couple times in the last few years, and very proud of it. Customer care number. In case you don't want to enter the voice of customer yourself, you can call 1-800-752-6096, option 2 for customer service. They'll enter the voice of a customer for you. Finally, again, my email address, jmatthews@languageline.com, and my direct line to my office, 1-800-316-5493. I think we're going to go through the remaining questions now.
Joe,
Yes, sir.
while we're waiting for questions, something that perhaps I could add, if I may, because of the surge and the next surge we're having, whatever it is with COVID, we have brought back an emergency COVID-related portal so that if you have to get something translated over the weekend, let me know. I can get you the information regarding that portal and access to it. This is specifically for rush COVID emergency projects.
Great. Yeah. Thanks for throwing that in, John. I forgot all about it, but I do remember seeing where you guys had opened that back up again. So that's great. Yeah. Once COVID started, and we had just overwhelming requests from clients on getting documents out COVID related, our translation and localization team stepped up and made weekends available for requests now. So again, you can contact myself or John if you have any emergency rush translation projects, and we'll definitely be able to assist you with it. And Kim, do you want to go through the rest of the questions?
Yes, just a moment. Let me pull
Sure.
them up.
Absolutely.
Okay, first question for those who arrived late, if we can answer this one again. How do you access the app?
All right. So right now, the app is something that your agency doesn't have. We have two versions of it. We have an audio and a video version. Your agency, without signing any other paperwork, can get the audio version set up in just a couple of days. So first you'd have to go to if you're accessing it on a smartphone, it's in the Apple App Store or the Google Play for Android. If it's on a computer, laptop, tablet is actually an app as well. But if it's on a laptop or desktop computer, you simply go to a URL, which is on our website. But once your agency, if they do sign up for it, you'll get an auth code and I'll send the instructions.
Great, that sounds wonderful. Next question was, how do we get a copy of this presentation? I think Joe mentioned earlier that I have a copy of the PowerPoint that he used for today. I also will at the end of this session have a copy of a recording of today's presentation, which will also be made available to you. So you can get it either in print or in MP4 form. Okay, this is a question for you, Joe or John. Going back to the information on language proficiency tests, are there study tests available? If someone wants to become bilingual and must pass this test, is there a way to prepare for it?
Sure. So the first thing you'd want to do is on our website, we have an entire section on LanguageLine Academy, and we have anything from bilingual fluency assessments, which means that you are going to be tested in both English and a target language. And we also just have language proficiency tests, which is usually in a second language in English. Once you sign up, you will be given like a study guide. You'll be given instructions on when and where to be. All the tests now are done virtually. So most of the time you have to have a camera. So you come on, you'd have to provide your driver's license up to the screen so they make sure that it's actually you who's performing the test. And then you'd go through with it. Once you're finished with a proficiency test, you'll be graded on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 being a novice and means you probably shouldn't be speaking in another language to your clients. 2 is a beginner. 3 is a moderate level where you're proficient enough to be doing it, and all the way up to 5 where that's a professional linguist. So if you have additional questions, I can provide more information to you through email, but I welcome you to go to our website first and look through all the information on there.
All right, let me get back to the screen. I'm multitasking here, as you can imagine. Trying to get ready for our survey. Sorry, okay, I'm back. How do we get a language preference card, display, or poster? I remember we used to have those. Do you guys give those anymore?
We absolutely do. They're free of charge on our website. So
on the website.
So you're on the website right now. So on, under client, what is it? Client tools or training tools or something like that. I'll send you a direct link, Kim, but free of charge, we have not only the language identification guide, the desktop display, the wall posters. We also have many different versions of our quick reference guide. Everything from a piece of paper that you put up in your cubicle to we now have plastic badges that can go on your lanyard, go on your wallet, they're credit card size, and they walk you through actually connecting with the interpreter. We also have stickers that you can put on every single phone. It's really important to have these tools in case you're ever audited. So even if you don't know how to use the service, if you've never used it before, if you're audited and somebody comes by your desk and says, how do you access an interpreter when needed? You can simply pull it off your lanyard, off your cubicle wall, out of your wallet, and that will count as you knowing how to do it. At least you know where to find the information on how to do it.
That's very helpful. And I like the idea that there are a number of things that we can pull from the website, which gives us much more access to that information and being able to have it handy when we need it. Next question, does LanguageLine keep a transcript or recording of each conversation? If so, how do we retrieve it?
All right, so we do not record any calls whatsoever. Our clients are welcome to. In fact, we service most of the 911 clients or 911 centers in the country, and they record every single call. We're totally 100% fine if our clients do it, but we don't record any calls for confidentiality reasons. We can't store any of the calls, so therefore we don't record any of them.
Would there be a problem if we recorded them?
None whatsoever. And to follow up on that, as far as us not recording calls, during a call, an interpreter can use a couple different methods in order to help them with the interpretation. They can write down notes on a notepad. They can write on a whiteboard, on an electronic pad that at the end of their shift, they have to, if they wrote it down on a piece of paper, they have to shred that piece of paper. If it's on a like electronic board, it's automatically wiped out before the next call. But yes, answer the question, you are more than welcome to record the calls.
Yeah, and actually I was thinking more in terms of the client being able to record it. They would have, I would imagine, a use for keeping that information.
Sure.
But the confidentiality is a big issue.
Right. And again, we have no problem with you or your client record any of the calls. We just don't for that reason.
Would you talk a bit about the work environment of LanguageLine? There's a question about your employees being fairly treated.
Sure.
Is that something that you can answer?
Yeah, of course. So our employees are, from everything I've heard, we have close to 14,000 employee interpreters now. And I've heard great things about how they're treated. Now, our interpreters are everywhere. They can be a work at home interpreter located in the United States. They could be a call center interpreter located in the United States or a number of countries. We have call centers in Mexico, Costa Rica, Panama. But I've heard, and I don't work directly with the interpreters. I mean, most of them anyways. Now, I was located in our Monterey, California headquarters for a few years before I moved to Florida and started my role here. But they participated in everything just like we did. I mean, everybody, it's like one big family. We have a monthly call where everybody is on and the president of the company goes through anything that's happening that's new and ask for input. And it's a very open company. Every single person in the company also has to go through training for on a yearly basis, not only like waste and fraud, but also, the whole sexual harassment and ethical treatment and everything like that. So if I had to personally give an opinion on how well everybody is treated, I'd say it's great. This is the best company I've ever worked for, and I don't plan on working for any other after this.
And Joe, if I may add to that, over on the translation side, we have about 110 staff, I would say, primarily project managers and desktop publishing and engineering teams. I've worked with these people now, as I say, for 10 years. I'm 25 years in the business. I've never worked with a team quite like what we have here in terms of their rigorous attention to what they do, but sort of I guess, esprit de corps or something like that. There's just such a high level of commitment to our customers and to being as good and efficient as possible. I've really never had anything like it. I'm very, very impressed by my team. Then I can also say that the linguists that we work with, many of them are trusted teams that we've worked with going back as long as I've been involved. I know, for instance, for the city of New York or the state of New York, we have a team that has been together now, some very large contracts. And that's exactly the same case. You know, each of these trusted linguistic teams we've had in place for 10 years. So that's how I see it at any rate, personally. I'm sorry for the interruption.
That's okay. Are there any other questions? Do we have any other burning questions before we end?
It looked like one more popped up, and I'm not sure.
Oh, yeah,
Looked like it
there
went
is
from
another one.
7 to 8.
Thank you. I've heard that the Language Line Solution employee, this is another question about employee relations.
Okay.
I've heard that Language Line employees don't have paid breaks. What's the turnover rate for this company? And I don't think that these guys are the right people to direct these questions to. I would suggest that you direct them to the HR department, or perhaps to the executive suite of Language Line Solution.
Hey, have them email me directly. My email address is
Okay.
jmatthews@language. I would be very happy to get this to the right.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. But thank you for your concern, whoever, I'm not sure who this is, but thank you for your concern. Before we end, I want to encourage everybody to take the survey. It is in the chat, and I'm also going to share my screen, if you will allow, so that you can see the QR code.
All right. So I stopped sharing, so it should be all yours.
All right, let me get back to it. Let me share this screen. There, you should be able to see the QR code, which should take you directly to the survey. And I want to, first of all, thank John and Joe for putting together this presentation for us. This is a wonderful tool for us to be able to better serve our clients, particularly our non-English speaking clients. If you have any questions, certainly contact Joe, who is our account rep. Is that right, Joe?
That is correct.
Okay, contact
Reach out to
Joe.
me anytime.
Okay, and he can get all of your questions answered. Once again, thank you for joining. Please do take the survey before you depart. No other questions before we leave? We'll hang. Okay, I see something. Let's see what that is. We'll hang on for a while in case you have any questions, and I'll leave the survey up for you to complete the survey. We did have another question in the chat. There was a question about the link for the language preference card. I will be getting that to you when I send the presentation and give you the link to the recording.
Now, Kim, you can have multiple people request materials. Usually try to get as many in one order as possible. So if there's a couple different, instead of having like 20 different people order 10 cards, if you can order like 200 at one time or a couple of orders would be best. I mean, we'll work with you, however, but they just try to keep it streamlined as much as possible.
Thank you for that clarification. I just assumed that this was something we could download from the internet and print ourselves, but these are actual documents. No. Wonderful.
They are. Okay. They are, and I could send you, if you are interested in electronic versions of them, I can email you those. We do have electronic versions of a lot of our training materials, and I can send those to you. But what you would order on our website is all stuff they would mail out to you.
Okay, then let's do that in a group order. If you guys will email me how many you will need for your particular departments, I'll be glad to make that order all in one so that we can consolidate that. So don't make your
And-
own order. If you will email me and I'll make the big order. Any
And
other questions?
usually rule of thumb on,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like the training materials, as far as like the wall poster, desktop display, rule of thumb is usually like 1 or 2 for each location. And then the quick reference guides at per who's going to be using it.
I'm sorry, you broke up there a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. So I was saying, as far as the training materials go, the desktop display and wall poster, rule of thumb is usually like 1 or 2 of those per location. And then the quick reference guides, at least 1 for every single employee who needs to use it,
Great, thank you.
of course.
Folks, Kim, may I add something in really quickly, please?
Sure.
I also have we spin it off from this presentation, but I have a basic translation 101 webinar that if anybody would be interested, I'm very happy to run that for people and talk through it. And the reason I mention this is that there are a lot of folks sort of on the inside of each department that they have an impact on translation, and also translations have an impact on them. And I'm thinking about people, for instance, in communications departments, graphic arts, and so on, that I can help them walk through some of the considerations when a document is being prepared, or a website or whatever is being prepared, and it's not going to be just in English, but it'll be in other languages. As a, for instance, with Spanish, it typically has about 35% more words. And if the people who are creating the document are aware of that and take it into consideration, the overall results will be better. And there's a lot of little things like that. So I'm happy to do it. We also have, I've been sharing a PDF of about 140-page guidebook to translation and localization. It's really a translation book, but it's easy to read. Hard copies, we do distribute those for free. Anybody who sends me a mailing address, I'll be happy to ship one out. It's a very good book to have in hard copy form.
Yeah, it sounds like a great resource. We have one final question. Does your contract with the county cover all services or just phone interpretation?
No, it covers everything right now besides video. So any of the services, we are an approved vendor for your county now. So any of those services that you do request, we're able to provide to you. The only one that requires an additional contract is video. If you wanted to use on-site interpretation at any time, we do have an onboarding form that would have to be completed for our on-site department just to get them, get you in the system and everything. But all of the services are available.
Great. Okay, that has to be our last question because it is now 3 o'clock. I want to thank everybody for joining us, particularly our presenters, John and Joe. Please reach out to Joe if you have any other questions, and make sure we're utilizing Language Line. That's it for today.
Thanks so much, Kim. And if you ever want to do a follow-up, like a refresher, or if there's anybody who missed it, we can do this at any time. You just let us know.
Oh, that's great to hear.
All
Thanks,
right,
everybody.
everyone have a great day.
Take care.
Please
Be well.
do the survey before you sign off.